It's time for Talking Pictures Trivia. A quick friendly reminder, New Jersey is one of the few states where you cannot pump your own gas.
Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of geographically challenged friends explore movies through trivia as an excuse to keep their friendships alive. I'm one of these friends and today's host, Nick, and with me is...
Tom.
And KJ.
All right, great to have you back as always. Additionally, joining us as a guest for this episode is...
Byron.
Thanks for joining us, Byron. Byron and KJ have a text message thread dedicated to Kevin Bacon's 6 Degrees game. Byron is heavily involved with the Black Professionals in International Affairs, which can be found on Instagram at IABPIA, as well as International Career Advancement Program and the Association of Professional Schools in International Affairs and the Sociology Social Club, which can be found on Instagram at Sociology Social Club. In addition to all that, Byron's wife is the creator and graphic designer for Die Boho Mama, which can be found on Instagram at Die Boho Mama. Check it out for different crafts and photo memorabilia. Die Boho Mama, more than a purchase, a memory. Byron also conveniently likes movies. For those joining us for the first time, we start off each episode with a movie quiz, as these pivotal questions will determine who earns today's trivia crown. The first round of questions will be worth 1 point each, and the second round of questions will be worth 2 points each. Then, once the fierce competition is over, we follow it up with our famous movie rant where anything goes. KJ, tell us about today's movie.
Today we are going back to 1987. The Legend of Zelda is released for the NES in the USA. Final Fantasy I is released in Japan. U2 releases With or Without You. Madonna releases Open Your Heart. And the world population hits 5 billion. During all this, Paul Michael Glaser's movie, The Running Man, is released in theaters alongside Three Men and a Baby, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Moonstruck, and Good Morning Vietnam. Nick will be quizzing us today. Nick, what is The Running Man all about?
You are all in for a treat this week, my friends. This movie is about a military guy named Ben Richards, who will not fire on innocent women and children. He then is imprisoned. He then escapes prison. He is then put on a game show where prisoners go. And then he does things for a resistance for some reason. Again, it's an amazing movie filled with lots of cheese, and we're going to explore that. That's all you need to know. Tom, if you only had one word to describe The Running Man, what would it be?
I'm going to take my hyphen privilege and say self-parody. KJ, what would your word be?
Announcer. Byron?
I think I would go with comedy.
And my word would be fantastic.
It's time for question 1.
What caused the famous Butcher of Bakersfield riot? I'm talking about on the ground, not in the air.
Locked in.
Locked in?
Locked in?
KJ?
The people were starving?
I believe it is Byron.
I'm going to say a food shortage, if I remember correctly.
Tom?
Yeah, I thought it was also food. I thought it was a food riot. They were getting food.
Points for everybody. Yes,
Yay.
it was a food riot, and he would not fire on innocent children and women. Okay, so we can go in many directions off of this question, but let's talk a little bit about this vision of dystopian future. Okay, we gotta talk about this.
Yeah, well, it's a vision of kind of dystopian future that's kind of 1984 influenced, right, or inflected. So it's the totalitarian state. The take on that really Stephen King and then Starsky from Starsky and Hutch have put on this is that that the kind of media complex and the state have merged. So there's this one thing, kind of entertainment and government are now a single entity, and that's how control is used. That's the kind of opaque thing that's being put into the masses to control them, and that's the take on it. That's unique, we could say, but it seems to be a 1984 model dystopia.
It all seemed very small to me, right? You had like what you saw is what you got. It didn't have
Mhm.
any feeling of a bigger universe behind it. And especially when they're in the actual game show, it could have been the same set or even not a set. It could have been a parking lot that they were in the whole time. Like there was no structure, there was no form. So this dystopian future, it either it didn't feel very well defined or expanded upon. It felt exactly what they needed for the movie to get Arnold to say these lines, which I think worked well.
There's no world building, certainly.
No.
No, and I thought, kind of the same thing where it felt really small. I think when you look at, for me, I feel like it felt very one level below Total Recall. And so where you have Total Recall, which is this world, this universe where you have with the Running Man, it felt like it maybe felt like it was localized, even though like Tom was saying, it was like this mix between, or this marriage between the state and entertainment. It also felt very localized. Like even with the shot of the people on the ground, it felt really small, not like, where you have this large scene where it's this pandemonium all across the city, like if it's a virus or if it's dystopic or anything like that. It just felt like it was like, oh, there's this, for example, like this one really small area in LA where it just seems like things are going crazy on like Skid Row or something. Then all of a sudden they bring out the choppers, which is this, overblown reaction to people who really just want something very basic. So I feel like that was that really kind of clued me into what the Running Man felt like, is that it was not something that was meant to be large, but something that was meant to be localized. But you're supposed to get the feeling that it's, this really large in mass kind of dire situation.
Yeah, I'm. It's interesting because it seems like the movie has a cheap look. I think that's part of the problem why it seems so local, and it doesn't have like a oh
Or
God, what's it
charm.
yeah, oh, sure, but it doesn't have the, what's it called, Catching Fire, or God, what's
The
the
Hunger
Lord?
Games.
The
Hunger
Games.
Games.
Yeah, it doesn't have this kind of Hunger Games thing where you get to kind of see a universe and there's world building, and then with the world building we zoom in and zoom out in response to it. It's just sort of everything takes place in LA because we can't afford more sets than this. But if you're going to merge government and entertainment, you can imagine like the Justice Department in service of Los Angeles. Like Los Angeles would be the place where everything now occurs. It would be the center of the world. And it's also, I imagine people from LA just think it's the center of the world anyway.
Was there a single shot with sunlight? Every shot was either inside or
The prison.
oh,
Yeah,
the
when they were
prison.
running
Yes,
across the
yes,
yard trying to
yes.
escape with the collars and everything.
The airport as well. He's running outside.
Okay. Yes. And that was during the day. Yep, yep. You guys are right. Yeah.
With that amazing stunt double.
Well, no, I wanted to know where he was running to. So I know he's the Running Man, but he's running down a tarmac and they're in a truck that has a net guy, like a net gun. Like, is that the best way to avoid them? Like maybe hide in the building, or I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
another thing we might bring up later is there's one technology that it seems to be, or at least in my headcanon in this movie, the one thing they can do is make video of anything. So there's not necessarily cameras everywhere, but I feel like they were capturing everything as it was in 3D, and then they can make video of it. Right? They had the exact video of I keep calling him Richard Banner, but it's Ben Richards.
Ben Richards.
Ben Richards in the helicopter. They had the footage in the locker room. They have a footage everywhere. So I'd assume it would be really tough to hide in the building because they can produce video of anywhere we'd go.
So maybe they had drone technology we didn't see. It's just everywhere.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know how they did it, but they seem to have that.
Yeah. It's in the surveillance state. They just never bothered to explain it in the picture.
They explain enough of what they need to explain. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
Like most Arnold movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's time for question 2.
Why will you follow Ben Richards' commands when he asks you to do something?
I'm gonna lock in. I think I remember what this is a reference to.
Oof. Locked in.
Locked in.
KJ, you're going to start us off.
Because if you don't, you're gonna have to listen to a cheesy one-liner.
I think that's why we listen. Yeah.
Byron?
I want to say it was either get fired. I think it was getting fired or end up being one of the running people.
That's true. It is people. Tom?
I say, I'm gonna break your neck like a chicken.
Oh, KJ was the closest, but I can't give him the points because there are a lot of cheesy one-liners. It's because he's going to say, please.
When was that?
When he's in the apartment with the woman and he was telling her, we're going to go to the airport. We're going to go to Hawaii. And she's on the workout bench.
And then he lifts her up.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the response to the answer is a perfect time to bring on the cheese. Let's embrace the cheese, shall we? Our favorite elements of it, where they may have gone too far, which I don't think is possible in this film. Let's talk about cheese, cheesy lines, dialogue, anything.
Yeah, I think I like what was it? Underground uplink. I'm gonna what does he say? I'm gonna uplink your ass and then you'll be on the ground. It was
I'm going to uplink your ass and you'll be on the ground.
Yeah.
But it was right after he says something else that's like the opposite of that.
Yeah. It was like hard to follow.
There was the one where the which character was it? Was it not Jim Brown's character, but Sub-Zero. I was thinking about Mortal Kombat, but where he gets his neck like kind of done with their barbed wire, and it was something along the lines of being was it a pain in the neck or something in the neck? I remember that. I think it was a pain in the neck. Yeah, I was like, oh my goodness, it was like one line after another in this one.
Byron, you're spot on. I love all of the ones about the stalkers, especially Buzzsaw. He had to split. and Fireball was a hothead.
Yes. Then he throws the what was it, the dynamite or the flare. It was like, how about a light or something like that. It was, I feel like I have never heard more cheesy one-liners in an Arnold movie than this one. I did not realize it until rewatching it.
I think it's the most I've ever, and I think that's why I really think this is my guilty pleasure, because it's just so over the top. I mean, they probably were like in their idea session, all the things on the board made it into the film, like every single
spaghetti.
And then they made the film around all that cheesy dialogue. Like even as he's running away from Dynamo, he's like, hey, Christmas tree, hey, light bright. Like they just don't end. Like they like even through normal occurrences. I mean, I love it. I absolutely love how ridiculous some of those were.
Yeah, it reminds me of wrestling, right? It's like WWF, now WWE wrestling, has that same kind of energy where it's like cheesy and over the top and big. And that's what's happening in this movie. We have, Ventura, who was at the end of his career. I think he retired in 87 from the WWF. Sub-Zero, Professor Tanaka, I think his name was also a WWF wrestler in the 70s. And so you have this kind of cheese factor that's taking people from, if anything, the medium that is more cheesy than this and putting it in there. And more or less, and I think they call him Professor Sub-Zero too. So there's not even there's barely a reality shift, in it.
I thought you were referring to Captain Freedom's retirement, because when he did it, it was a true blood sport.
Oh, God.
Not all these fancy gadgets.
Yeah, we have to talk about Captain Freedom. That was a thing that was frustrating. Yeah. Yeah, but and also Richard Dawson playing himself, complete with the kissing with the pinky ring from Family Feud. I mean, so much of I think the cheese of the movie is the lack of invention. Actually, it's just they're taking elements that already exist and putting it more into a collage as opposed to coming up with original stuff.
What was interesting is I didn't know him from the Family Feud, and then just randomly surfing through cable at some point in my life, I came into these reruns of those. I'm like, oh my gosh, he is that guy. Like, it wasn't just like Tom said. I didn't know him from that reference at that age, you know?
Yeah, everything. Even like the pinky ring that he has was a big, a big thing. He's also British, by the way, which is unusual. The cheese is interesting because cheese tends to break the tension, right? That's the whole point of like cheesiness, right? Is that if it's a horror movie, it can break the tension. If it's an action movie, it can relax you. I mean, even in like kind of more scatological content, kind of cheesy metaphors also relax the awkwardness or relax the tension. And it's interesting, this movie, which has this kind of it comes from this source that's actually fairly scathing, right? It's this kind of like the book is like this kind of really vicious anti like Nixon thing that's kind of reinterpreted as an anti-Reagan thing. And so there's this like kind of deep anger in the source material that then when they put it into this new format, into this movie, they load it up with cheese. So like all of that kind of young man anger that was in Stephen King's writing when putting this book together, it just gets kind of sucked out, right? And I don't know really what the point of that is, other than and I guess they felt they couldn't sell the kind of the original content. It could also be that if you're making fun of these kind of distracting media types, right? This kind of distracting media entertainment thing that keeps you, keeps you looking in the wrong direction, so to speak. Actually having the movie replicate the thing that it's parodying could kind of be the point. I mean, it could be kind of brilliant of the movie. It probably isn't, but that's another interpretation of the cheese, is the fact that the movie is replicating what it's kind of pointing out, and what it's drawing our attention to.
I was debating a question about the amount of cheesy lines, and I was actually starting to count them, and it was too much for me. I just couldn't continue with.
How many did you get up to?
Oh no, I think I ended in the prison escape. Okay. I mean, like really early on in this one. Like it just was, oh my gosh, why can't I remember? One of the questions I was going to ask was, what was the first cheesy line? And there was something about a guy and he threw him down. It was something about lift or fall, give you a lift or help you. I can't remember it right now. It's killing me. But that's where it began.
Give you a lift?
Yeah. Want a lift? Want a lift, maybe? Was it?
Yeah.
Give you a lift, want a lift, something like that. That's where it began. And it just intensified from there.
So other cheese in this movie, they also made jokes that were like, they would reference Mr. Spock. And then the younger people in the room would be like, who? Like they were doing a few that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I
Young
guess
whippersnappers.
Yeah.
Gilligan's Island was another one.
Gilligan's Island.
Yes.
Yep. The minute. Yeah. And I guess similar to Videodrome, this movie couldn't predict that we were going to archive everything and almost everybody was going to have access to everything. So the only things that are forgotten have to be like actively forgotten, not passively forgotten.
I also think they censored what was being aired, because keep in mind, they're controlling the media waves. The government is in line with entertainment. So even if they did archive all that footage, KJ, there's a very good chance they weren't sharing it.
Well, I'm saying in real life, where we are today, in 2021, we have everything at our fingertips, right? Between streaming and where, in universe, you're right. They had all those tapes and they had all those things, but yeah, I just meant similar to Videodrome, where they were like, oh, the TV is gonna take over everybody's mind, man, and it kind of didn't happen because we all got our own local TVs and we could watch exactly what we want. The Running Man couldn't predict that all pop culture that's been recorded is now not gone. It's not going right? Pop culture in the 1890s, apart from books, right, it's probably gone. I mean, Tom, you might know some plays from the 1890s, but nobody's regularly accessing these things.
Talking about the future and their portrayal of it, the one thing they got right, and I wanted to give the Running Man credit for it, but we actually already talked about this in Back to the Future, although it was Back to the Future 2. When did Back to the Future 2 come out?
87, I think.
80.
I thought it was 89.
9. Okay,
Oh.
wait. I'm going to go back to my original statement of what something they got right about the future. They had big screen, flat screen TVs. I mean, big. These didn't look like they were projections. They looked like they were flat. And the reason I say that is we gave credit to Back to the Future 2 for the flat panel TVs, but actually in the Running Man, we saw them. I'm sure there may have been earlier versions. Maybe Blade Runner might have had that as well, but they got that one thing came real.
I think another one too. I don't know if it was a foreshadowing or not, but looking at the public's how would you say thirst for reality TV. Mm-hmm. Well, there was like a couple of scenes where they were in what was his name, Ben Richards or Dawson's office, or just like around when they were like in the hallways, and there was one poster that kept showing up. I don't know if y'all caught it, Hate Boat. And then there was another movie poster it was Hate Boat, and it was another reality show. But Hate Boat just kept popping up, and if you could see what the poster was, it was like a catamaran or something with somebody hanging off of it. But you could tell it was in the vein of a reality show, something similar to what The Running Man is. Mm-hmm. So I think when you look at shows back in the early '80s, mid '80s. We had pretty much like game shows, cheesy sitcoms, really bad movies. You're looking at, TV shows like, A-Team, Starsky and Hutch, I think it was late 70s, things like that, where it's really about, kind of societal issues, game shows, things around newlyweds, things about dating, things about Family Feud, obviously. But, reality shows weren't a thing back then. So when you look at Running Man, and then the movie poster for Hate Boat, and then with the entertainment being one with the state, it's like, oh, this is how we keep people happy, which is giving them something that takes their mind off the reality of they don't have food.
To that end, it's also like it's the opiate, right? It's the thing that distracts the masses and gives them comfort, gives them healing, even though it's not. I wouldn't say healing. It gives them comfort, not healing. Comfort, but not healing. But at the same time, by it being like a reality show, and it's interesting that they foresee, reality shows, which when they first started were kind of cruel, right? They've gotten easier to watch now, but when they started, they were like kind of mean to the people on it, or the people were mean to one another.
MTV, you look at but Cribs, I was thinking of Real World. Mm-hmm. Those are two of like the early ones that a lot of people think of.
Yeah. It was started with MTV and then moved to the Island one, right? Would Get Off the Island, don't die.
Oh yeah, that famous one. Don't die at the island.
What was it called? The Survivor.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this is like the idea with those shows, they're not really reality, right? It has the verisimilitude of reality, but it's heavily edited together to create a kind of dramatic structure. And that's what this entire movie is about. It's this kind of creation of reality, because for some reason they have cameras everywhere, which isn't explained, whatever. They're still kind of creating the reality for the masses. So there becomes this kind of world within the world, and reality television actually has become literal reality for the people, for the people in this world. So it seems as if you can make this like a comment on reality television too, the kind of inherent falseness of it.
Byron, you also missed another one of the ads that showed up. It actually was a video ad for Climbing for Dollars. They show
that was it.
Yeah, climbing. So he's climbing the chain, and there's like these like Dobermans or pit bulls chasing at his legs, and then he gets sprayed with gas and falls with all the dollars. I was like, I think I'd watch that.
And that's the point.
But that does actually, I mean, I got to move on, but that does almost go back to Videodrome, where they're trying to find catchy things that people would watch. This was a prior episode we did, Byron. Yeah. The guys, it was about a TV station that was looking for, I don't know, dramatic, eccentric. Tom, what's a better word for it? Just
Snuff
out there
films.
types. Yeah. They were looking for things to really catch some eyeballs from some interesting characters. But needless to say, let's move on. At the end of round one, I forgot to tally it. That's easy because no one got that. We have a tie game. Everyone has 1 point, so anyone can get it when we get back from this quick commercial break.
Have an idea for an ad? Is it a fake product? We'll air it. Send us an audio clip of your fake ad, and after it goes through our rigorous and strict reviewing process, we'll fit it into an episode. Don't have an idea for an ad? Make one anyway and send it to fakeads@talkingpicturestrivia.com or call 201-467-8679 and leave a voicemail of your ad. You'd sound really good on radio. This ad requesting fake ads is a real ad requesting you to send us fake ads. Seriously, send us your fake ads.
And we're back. Byron, we're at a critical part of our episode where we ask the guests a key question. If you could watch The Running Man with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Let's see. It can only be one, right?
Yeah,
make
it's your
it a group.
question.
Yeah,
It's your question. Yeah.
Okay, I would have to go with, so there's this I know a musician, an artist. His name is Fonte Coleman. A lot of hip hop folks know him from the group Little Brother. Folks who may not know him from hip hop know him from the group The Foreign Exchange. But I would want to watch it with Fonte because his commentary on just like pop culture. If any of you, like, y'all are really familiar with like Questlove, it's just like expansive, and it's crazy because Fonte knows so much about so many different things, but it's also his take. Like, they're always witty, they're always insightful, they're always deep, and they're always, I think, very critical of, you know, where we as a society think, what we do, how things develop. And so just looking at, you know, as much as we joke about Arnold movies, as much as we joke about Running Man, I would love to watch it with Fonte because he's able to find like the nuggets that really have you think about, like, you know, climbing for dollars. Like, you know, why Dobermans? You know, why can't it be poodles? You know, why can't it? You know, why couldn't that have been a woman climbing the rope? You know, why do Dobermans get a bad rap? You know, some things like that. So I would have loved to have watched that this with Fonte Coleman.
Do you think Fonte would enjoy this film?
I think he would enjoy it for what it's worth, and it's a vehicle for Arnold the one-liner.
Does Fontaine do commentary like that on like on a YouTube channel or anything? Does he have? Is it something he normally does? Takes a movie and picks it apart, or not picks it apart, but comments on it?
I think, you know, he's amazing on Twitter, and so I know like he's commented on, you know, obviously music, hip hop, R&B, rock, movies, TV shows, you know, crazy with collections. So I don't know if he has like we call it like just a channel dedicated. I don't think he has like a channel just dedicated to movies, but it's really just checking out like his commentary. I mean, he used to have, I don't know if he still has it, but he used to have a Vimeo channel that was really slick, well done. On Twitter, he's an amazing, insightful voice. What else is he on? I know he's on Instagram, you know, so he's pretty good. I think he has a pretty solid following there, but I think that's just kind of like all encompassing because of who he is. He's like an everyday family man who just happens to rap and sing really well. So he talks about like average things, like, yeah, you know, those TVs. He was like, when I was young, I couldn't afford those TVs, but now that I'm famous, I can almost afford to. Things like that. That would be like a Fonte comment.
It's time for question 3.
Who are last season's winners?
Oh,
Locked in.
locked in.
Locked in. I don't even have a good joke for this one. I
You got to think quick because you go first.
I don't know. Logan from Logan Run. Who played Obi-Wan Kenobi? Why can't I think of his name? Not Alec Guinness, but
Ewan McGregor?
Ian McGregor
Ewan?
from The Island and the love interest from The Island. Those 3.
The love interest from The Island. Okay.
I can't remember who played. Yeah, I can't remember the movie. Yeah.
Byron.
I was gonna say the last season's winners are definitely hungry and waiting for attention, possibly starving for attention.
Okay.
They are starving for attention.
I know they won't be back. Tom.
I know Whitman is one of them, like the poet. Price, like the pitcher, like David Price. And I want to say the last one's Aded or Aded, something like that.
Okay. Tom is definitely getting the points. It's Whitman, Price, and Haddad. You said Aded, but I think that's I think that is pretty darn close. So yes, the supposed winners, Whitman, Price, and Haddad, apparently are not enjoying the sun and glamorous lifestyle that the network made them look out. So they're a bunch of, what do we find? Charred, decaying bodies. Yeah. So
decomposed.
Yeah.
Which they just left in the locker room.
They didn't even like get rid of them. Like, that's really lazy. Yeah.
Like they have a new locker room for each season, and they just leave the dead contestants.
It was like the abandoned wing.
Yeah, it was just conveniently in another locker room within the game zone or whatever. I don't even know. I don't know
and they even left the dog tags on them. Like, what?
Yeah.
Apparently nobody goes in that area though. It's like decimated or something. I don't know. Just a reason that the rebels couldn't find it, even though they had a secret base in the game zone where the transmitter was, but that's another story.
Yeah.
I think I may have just jumped into my next question, but
okay. I was gonna say
it's okay. No, we'll go for it. Go for it.
Well, it's like, where is Mac Fleetwood? What the hell is it? He's like in the middle of Los Angeles, but also inside the arena itself. What? Where is the? The geography made no sense.
They're on the outskirts. No, they have tunnels that take them to the game.
Oh, okay.
Launch down, except for Fireball, who apparently has a jetpack with unlimited fuel.
Yeah. And it was interesting. It's like Mac Fleetwood, and that was also the other guy there. Do you know who that was? It was Frank Zappa's son.
One person that was, I know we were talking about, the drummer from Fleetwood Mac, and then Tom had mentioned, was it Frank Zappa's son? And I was also thinking about Maria Conchita Alonso.
Yeah.
Back in those days, the 80s into the early 90s, she was a huge star.
Yeah, she was a big deal.
Yeah, and even thinking about them when I was watching, I was like, man, I had a huge crush on her. And it was something, when you look at kind of the heroines from a number of Arnold's movies, they're it's kind of like this, I don't know if you call it archetype or stereotype, but it's like women who tend to be like very strong, very outspoken. Not that either of those are not negative characteristics, but it's what he like really plays to kind of his strength as kind of his partner. But like with Maria Conchita Alonso, I think she went from, of course, being like, I hate you, I'm going to sell you out, to then seeing the truth. And I think her being, with him throughout it all, even with them kind of like bickering as kind of like a couple, I think it really kind of sold, the Arnold being tied to the resistance. And then you have Maria, who is, part of the entertainment. And then she ends up getting, of course, put into the game because she ends up on, seeing the truth and as well as revealing the truth. But it was great to see her as that character, to really see the change and then trying to be part of the change.
And she actually had a critical role within the limited plot of this film. She remembered the password to the uplink signal, which allowed the resistance to broadcast everything. And I guess presumably bring down a game show. They didn't quite bring down the whole society, but it was a very important part of that plot line.
Yeah, the musicians, it's fun to have all of the rebels who make changes be these kind of popular musicians or connected. I guess Frank Zappa's son, whose first name I forgot, was a pretty successful musician in his own right. But there is this kind of like musicians versus former wrestlers, that dynamic that's going on in here. And I don't quite know, you know, maybe it's like the kind of like rebels 70s, 80s outlaw musician against, you know, like what, like the hulking example of Perfect Man or something like that. I might be reading too much into it, but there is that dynamic that's going on here where the good guys are, you know, musicians and also Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Tom, it goes back to your point before about anything they could find in LA. It's like, oh yeah, we got a bunch of musicians.
Yeah.
We got these wrestlers who try to act.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't
There
even
we go.
need to make you know, we don't even have to travel to create scenery.
And it's a great platform for politics, apparently.
Yeah, that's true. We got two governors in here.
Hmm.
By the way, the other guy's name was Dweezil Zappa. So if you
Dweezil,
didn't
okay.
remember,
Yeah.
if you didn't remember it, that might be why.
Yeah, I knew it was something hard to remember.
And something to keep in mind too is Alonzo Maria. She was also a musician.
Mhm.
You know, I think I knew her from, you know, all the kind of the action movies that she did. But it was kind of with watching this movie and then doing a little bit of digging on some of the characters, or more so the actors and actresses, is that she was a huge star.
Yeah.
You know, back in, I think it was like the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that I was like, oh, when you look at Mac Fleetwood,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at Zappa, and when you look at her, you got three musicians like who were just like kind of, you know, definitely centered in the, well, maybe not centered, but definitely a big part of the movie.
Yeah. There's like a cool factor too when you bring in musicians. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's a different energy from, you know, Jesse the Body Ventura, and it's you're watching Arnold go from being more one of those guys, one of the muscle, to one of the rebels, which is, you know, maybe the rebels tend to be a little leaner, but in the end, you want them to win.
Not to take us on a giant tangent, but do you think that in the current era of filmmaking, that has been more moved to comedians? All of a sudden, within the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, they really made a sharp move into the, you know, silver screen, if you will.
I think comedians now have a bigger role, kind of in our, I don't know, collective conscious with social media. So you don't just have like the same, you know, 10 stand-ups. You know, I think, you know, when you're talking about like 70s, 80s, you're talking about like Richard Pryor, you're talking about Moms Mabley, you're talking about, you know, Gene Wilder wasn't a stand-up, but, you know, Paul Mooney, you're talking about Gene Wilder, who was connected to Richard Pryor. You know, and they eventually had, some of them had movies that were, you know, relatively successful for that time. But now when you look at, you know, so what comedians, the exposure they have through social media. So when you're looking at, you know, all of the HBO specials that you can just be mildly successful and get an HBO special. And then if you do well, then that translates into a TV show, or it translates into a movie, or it translates into guest appearances, or it translates into a podcast. You know, obviously you know, you look at somebody like Dave Chappelle, when you look at somebody like Monique, when you're looking at somebody like Kevin Hart, when you're looking at somebody like, what's his name? The guy from My Name is Earl. They take up a lot more space now than what they did before. So, you know, back then I think it was, you know, oh, let's see if this musician can translate into or if we can, you know, translate or transition this musician into the silver screen, versus now, you know, you got somebody who can be a YouTube star. You know, you have somebody like King Batch, who all of a sudden now is an up-and-coming star on the silver screen as well as, you know, TV shows. So yeah, I think it's a much different game now with social media.
I was going to say, yeah, because you did have, you know, like Steve Martin or Robin Williams, who also started off as stand-ups and had that transition, and Robin Williams also via the small screen with Morgan Mindy.
Yeah.
And Richard Pryor had a semi-successful film career. He wasn't as talented an actor as Robin Williams. I think he was a far better comedian. But it just seems like you have the gatekeepers aren't there anymore, and so you don't have like the you know, the same. there's more specialty in what we could look for, and so there's more means of accessing. And you wouldn't have somebody like Louis C.K. writing, directing, editing, and starring in his own show in the 1970s. It'd just be too expensive to do something like that. There wasn't enough channels, right? He was an FX guy, which is this other thing altogether. And so it seems like while you don't have the kind of star power that being a Richard Pryor gives you, like he is the man. Dave Chappelle is probably the closest to that, but I don't think even Dave Chappelle had the kind of marquee that Richard Pryor had. But now you have this far greater diversity, and that allows you to hear a musician you might really love. And KJ, you mentioned this on the last episode, like the Onion headline about man finally meets someone who's heard of his favorite musician.
Right.
There's that kind of greater diversity. But we're still in the era of the gatekeepers, I think, in this 80s scene.
It's time for question 4.
What were the odds on Ben Richards for the next kill? He's one mean something.
Locked in.
I don't know how that translates to odds, though. Right? It was on the board, right? That big board.
Yes, the bookies. Yep.
Yeah. Oh God, I couldn't make out that board.
Locked in.
Oh, I think I might have just given him a hint, Byron.
I'm gonna lock in too.
Tom, start us off.
2-1.
Byron?
I don't remember. IDK.
Give me something.
I thought it was 20-1. Let's go 20-1.
KJ.
I thought it was 100-1, which I thought was crazy, and I didn't know which direction, to be honest, when they said it that way, because he was doing well at that point. But I thought it was 100-1.
KJ gets the points. We are going to have to go to a tiebreaker on this one. I will let everyone try because this tiebreaker is going to be worth 3 points.
Yeah.
But before we go there, yes, I have to talk about the stalkers. I mean, come on. This movie is all about the stalkers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the scene where a nice little old lady with a little fire bets that Ben Richards will make the next kill. And of course, they're supposed to pick a stalker, but she decides that that's not what she wants to do. So let's talk about the lineup of stalkers, their personalities, their weapons of choice. I mean, we can't end this conversation of questions here without talking about our lovable and favorite stalkers.
It's nice to see Jim Brown, who's still alive and kicking, right? He
is.
I think he's still alive.
Yeah.
His rookie year was 1956. So
Wow.
Wow.
So he's still keeping it going. But yeah, he dropped out of NFL to do movies, which includes this performance. So I think he was my favorite just because Jim Brown. Jim Brown's the man. I don't think it was necessarily the it didn't necessarily have the out of his head flair of Buzzsaw. I think Buzzsaw's like really wide eyes and great intensity is probably a lot of fun. And Dynamo makes no sense. How has no one killed Dynamo yet?
He just drives them over in his little go-kart.
Yeah, he's not in good shape. I guess it's the electric thing.
Yes. He electrifies you to death.
Yeah. It's like a fat guy with a gun, like he's the best in a world.
And don't forget the operatic vocals.
Who's a real opera singer, actually. I looked him up. He's
See, another singer. There you go.
There we go.
Wrestlers or singers.
We just it's just a musician's paradise. Yeah. But yeah, I even though Jim Brown probably isn't the most charismatic of them, there's this little like Jim Brown fan in me that jumped at that.
The actual fight scenes I thought were edited really poorly. I never had any idea what was going on. And maybe that wasn't the point, right? Maybe the point was the show of the stalkers and the show of the runners. But the movie, it felt like it was edited or even shot like a TV show, not like a movie. Like there was the choreography didn't lead you to the next move. I think I mentioned before the settings they were like non-existent. Where were they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So thank goodness the stalkers at least had silly things about them so we could identify them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I completely agree. The action scenes were utterly whitewashed. They looked like the same thing over and over again.
I think I would go with Tom. You had Jim Brown. That was going to be my first. I think just the fact of who Jim Brown is and knowing that he decided his time in the NFL was done when he was like, yeah, I didn't want to basically retire and not remember who I was. And I felt that at that time, the film was where I could still make some money and people knew me. And so, he ended up basically moving over to blaxploitation. And that's where he ended up making another name for himself. But I think, since you said Tom, I'm going to have to go, or since you said Jim Brown, I'm going to have to go with Captain Freedom. I think Jesse Ventura going from a stalker, then going to a aerobic instructor, which was hilarious, and then going back to the stalker with a moral code. I think that just cracked me up. And from my day looking at, or maybe from our day, looking at what American Gladiators were, I think he was the only one that I could see in, this type of show, even if he was in real life, an American Gladiator from the TV show. I believe that he could have done that. So yeah, I feel like just Captain Freedom. Yeah, he has my vote.
I love the scene where he's giving color commentary and he's about to break down into this old war story and Damon just cuts him off.
That was hilarious.
I will say that one of the biggest flaws of this movie is that he doesn't fight Arnold, right? They set it up. They set the whole thing up. This is Chekhov's gun. This is the whole thing that Chekhov says with the gun. It's right. It's you, when you show a gun on stage, you fire the gun. That's the thing. You set up Captain Freedom. He's the guy. He's always in the background. We know he's the greatest ever. We also know he's like the good villain in the sense that he's a villain. He's a moral villain, right? He's like the Anton Chigurh of this masterpiece that we watched. And yet they never fire the gun. He never goes out and fights Arnold in a real contest.
Well, they do it in a simulated
but
contest.
it's not real. It's not like a real thing, right? It's not like that's what it was waiting
real?
for.
Well, he fought the body double.
Yeah, he fought a body double.
Wait, I want to talk about that in Movie Red. Movie Red.
Oh, that drove me. That was my and the aerobics thing I really loved. I thought that was hilarious, but that was the part of the movie, I think even more than the bad fight sequences, that drove me crazy, was this like huge script flaw. But anyway, I'll get over it. It's fine.
My vote would be for Buzzsaw. I think he had a lot of personality.
It's time for a bonus question.
What does Ben Richards think of Damon's offer to sign a contract to be on the game show?
Locked in. I think I got it. I'll lock in.
Locked in.
3 points, so it's anyone's game.
Locked in? I don't think I know this one.
KJ?
It's a load of crap.
That could be. Byron?
I'm going to say when hell freezes over.
Tom?
He's going to shove the contract down his throat, but hopefully leave room, because then he's going to punch him in his throat, like down to his stomach or something like that. But there's a point where he's like, I'm going to shove the contract down your throat, but you better leave room, because then I'm going to punch you down there as well.
That's actually pretty accurate. So Tom is going to get the 3 points and take down the episode. Yeah. But I'm going to read you the actual quote.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed that I won.
I'll tell you what I think of it. I live to see you eat that contract, but I hope you leave enough room for my fist, because I'm going to ram it into your stomach and break your darn spine.
Oh, wow.
Man.
Now that's how you win an episode, Tom.
It's time for Movie Rent.
Something that didn't come up on this episode, but I really wanted to talk about with you guys, really anyone who would listen and actually give me the moment to talk about it. There's a scene in this film that always perplexed me for years. And it's when the simulated fight between Captain Freedom and Arnold Schwarzenegger, aka Ben Richards, happens. And Damon's secretary says, Damon, you didn't have to kill him. And it's at the same time where we see the digital editing coming off the person who got hit with the spike. I have a theory of what that means, but what did you guys think that meant?
You didn't have to kill the stunt double?
Yeah, same.
And I was thinking that with basically killing, you didn't have to kill off Ben Richards, thinking that he, I think the crowd was starting to like him at that point. So I was thinking that she was saying that basically he could make us more money, and you just shot yourself in the foot.
Byron, after years of contemplation, that is the theory that I've come to. But originally, I did side with Tom and KJ. However, I was realizing after multiple views in my lifetime that wasn't necessarily a stunt double. I then realized that was probably pre-recorded an earlier fight from earlier in his career that they digitally edited Arnold Schwarzenegger's face over. But for years, I would stare at that and figure out who was that person that they didn't have to kill. And then I realized this is all about the showmanship, the production value, that you are right, or at least I believe you're right, that he was a star. Why did we kill off our star? Another theory, when I actually looked this up on the internet, was people were like, wait, does that mean they killed Jesse Ventura's character? I never thought that. But I did come to the conclusion that for entertainment value, he may have been more valuable to them alive. But did you guys, after I said that, KJ and Tom, did you ever think that it could be interpreted differently?
I guess if she's not in the know, right? She's just become a Ben fan, and that's what she's saying, possibly.
It's
maybe.
his assistant. She's probably the only one he doesn't talk mean to in actually the whole movie.
Well, then is she in the know? Does she understand that Ben didn't die? Right? She's watching the editing happening, right?
Yeah. No, that's why I'm saying she thinks that you didn't have to kill his character off.
Oh, they could
recruited him as the next star.
Yeah, so that's the only reason I want to bring this one up, because as I've watched this movie multiple times, that's the one scene I've actually micro analyzed to figure out what the heck she's saying. I think it may be the only one you can do that in the film, but I do think Byron's interpretation is my final decision, on what I think actually she was trying to say.
Yeah, I guess it would be old footage, right? Because Jesse Ventura's character is not doing this anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, so sure.
I had assumed because he ripped the stuff off and said, no, I'm doing this with my bare hands. And then I thought they went out and shot that scene, which I thought was strange because Jesse Ventura wanted to actually fight. He would know he wasn't fighting Arnold Schwarzenegger, that he was fighting a double. So why would he make this footage? So I guess it makes more sense.
He said
old footage.
that he won't do it. He didn't say, I'm not going to do it with this equipment. He said, I'm not going to do it with this equipment, but he also said, I won't do it. And that's why some of the interwebs thought that Damon killed off Ventura, but I never took it that way.
This is why you fire the gun. When you load a gun, fire the gun.
I think the big thing for me was just really seeing the attempt at showing a dystopic future and really trying to figure out a way to rectify things with that weird forced ending. I think it was a good attempt to kind of paint Schwarzenegger as this, kind of moral hero. But I think all in all, it was just a great vehicle for Schwarzenegger doing Schwarzenegger.
I'd like to once again congratulate our winner of the week, Tom. Well done. Especially in bonus round, actually. That was pretty challenging to get it as close as you did with that crazy dialogue that you had to bring up.
Yeah, well, I use it on my underlings or my students in college, so that's why.
Check out our website, talkingpicturestrivia.com, for more information about us and our episodes. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as our YouTube channel. We are extremely grateful for any positive reviews, as those help others like you find us. If you like what you hear, remember to like and subscribe to our show. Do you think you could survive the Running Man, and why? Let's continue the conversation on Twitter at Talking Studios. Have additional thoughts? Email us at talkingpicturestrivia@gmail.com or give us a call at 467-8679 for a chance to be featured on one of our future From the Listeners episodes. Thanks again, Byron, for joining us today. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at BLW. Once again, that's Instagram at BLW, as well as Twitter at Byron L. Williams. And that is Byron L. Williams.
You can find me on Twitter at Thomas Lehman 15. Also, please tune in to Talking Pictures Trivia B-Side. It's the sister podcast where we cover these films in more detail. We will see if we're going to do a Running Man one, but please, we have plenty of B-sides for you to back catalog, so shuffle through those.
And you can find me on Twitter at KJ10001000.
I can also be found on Twitter at The Nicknamed. Join us next time where we discuss Tom's recommendation from 1919, Madame du Barry. Stay tuned for our first impressions of Madame du Barry. Ding, 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 ding.
Yes. I don't remember when I first saw this. It was a while ago. And I had like a silent movie period where I watched a lot of them, and this was one of those. And I wanted to do it because I was, we had covered some silent movies. We hadn't really done the like costume drama thing that was going on in Germany at the time. And that's why I brought it here. And I hadn't seen it in really many, many years. It was actually pretty hard to find. It's like not available anywhere anymore for some reason. And we had also done Marie Antoinette earlier last year, which featured Madame du Barry as well in that movie. And so it was nice to see another version of her. What was I doing while I was rewatching this? I really didn't have any fish whatsoever. I think it was like probably I was with my parents up in their lake cabin. And so it was like a lot of breakfast food. So I would say sausage is what I was eating while watching this movie. Sausage and bacon. How about you guys?
So when I saw another silent film on the calendar, I thought it was actually going to be a good thing. I have a lot going on in my personal life lately, and I thought maybe I'd have like a 40.
He actually thought it might be a good thing.
Well, I'll explain why. I thought I was going to maybe have to devote, 30 minutes to an hour to watch a movie this week, just because, again, we're moving. There's a lot going on with, personal and professional life right now. And I thought I'd be quick. And next thing I know, I'm in this hour, 50-minute plus silent film where I have to pay attention and read all the intertitles. And the version I had was in multiple languages, which one of them, fortunately, was English. So it took a lot more mental capacity than I thought. However, I did think it was an interesting watch, and to see the evolution of this character who, yes, I did meet in Marie Antoinette in one of our earlier episodes, to see a different portrayal of her in this film. So it was interesting, but I thought I was actually in for a shorter watch, and it turned out to be the longest silent movie I've ever watched.
We haven't done Napoleon yet. Napoleon is 5.5 hours.
I don't like this yet.
Sign me up.
Mm-hmm. I actually haven't seen that. I heard it's really good. But...
I don't know it. But...
Oh, okay. How did you guys watch this movie?
So I for once attempted to watch the film more than like a day or two beforehand. And I was like, I'm going to get this movie and I'm going to watch it because I just started school and I knew I was going to be starting an MFA. And so I was like, this week. So I was like, all right, so I will watch it in advance. And I went to go find it and I found it nowhere. And so it was a very difficult film to find with English subtitles. Now, to be fair, I think I could have got away with most of the film without the English subtitles. To get the basic introduction, you needed the subtitles, but to get away with it, other than that, I think it would have been fine. So I attempted to be really diligent and watch it well in advance. I did not. I watched it today. The first half hour I watched on the Peloton. So I sat with my...
multitasking. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was. If I could have put it on the Peloton screen, it would have been brilliant. Instead, I had to stand there with my tablet riding watching the first
For an
half
hour and 53 minutes or whatever.
For an hour and 53 minutes, I am a Peloton master. No, I watched for 30 minutes on the Peloton, and so I got through that, and then I watched about an hour, and then I watched the last 15 minutes before the podcast. I tried to be good. I failed.
This was a photo finish for me too, Pat. So you're good.
So I was recruited to be on this particular episode the long time ago of Monday. So
today's Wednesday for the home listener. Yeah.
But this was the first time I had watched the movie. This was the first time I had heard of the movie. I looked it up very briefly after my presence was requested on Monday, so I had a vague idea of what the movie was before I watched it. But watching it on a laptop with English subtitles in a Word document to the side of the actual video I was watching in the dark was how I chose to prepare for this particular podcast.
Optimal conditions is what I'm hearing.
Very good. Yeah, I like the inclusion of Microsoft Word in your film watching experience.
I mean, we've got Microsoft Word, we've got Peloton, we've got
We're just
corporate
we're just
sponsorships
fishing for
everywhere. Corporate
Yeah.
sponsorship.
And if you want to learn more about Madame Dubarry, listen to the Audible.